Allergies. When I was a kid, I couldn't eat anything. I would wake up with, and then it was peanuts, and I was allergic to everything. It just seemed like everything. It's the Florida horsefly, and it just, I was in the woods, I don't think I'd survive, so thank goodness for civilization and pine cone. And I just was bit last week, but because I have the pine cone in my system, there's no reaction. I went to see my doctor and there was a problem, and I went to see another doctor who found a tumor and said I would need a hysterectomy and that it was imperative that I do it now. I told him I was too busy. This was about 5 years ago. And I would come back in 2 months. I had too much that I had to do. In the meantime, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be sick. I started taking the pine cone, 3 to 4 capsules a day, knowing I'm gonna be wiped out. I went 2 months later back in. He said, we're gonna do another ultrasound, see where this is at before we do the surgery. And it was gone. I came to an update research symposium that they do here. They kind of tell you what they're doing with their research. And it was so interesting that they did find this correlation. Now, again, huge coincidence. I was not part of a official study, but I can say that that did happen for me as well, and that was part of my little miracle.
I went to Eckerd College, and my genetics professor had established a collaboration to do research with Dr. Bradley and Dr. Tanaka. And part of me wants to continue going to graduate school and come back to TBRI to help with all this research, because there is so many awesome things that are in TBRI's future and that what they're researching now. And I tell everybody about it because I'm so passionate about their research and the results that we've been getting. And the first semester that I had taken the Pinecone Extra the whole time, I actually made the Dean's List for the first time. And I kept taking it, and second semester I made the Dean's List again. And I was taking the hardest classes that I had really ever taken, and I was completing a thesis. And so I'm not saying it, made me smarter, but it allowed me to focus more on my schoolwork and to accomplish things better. And I was helping in the C. elegans lab. So they actually have a model of Alzheimer's in these worms. So you can test them with the pinecone extract with different, types of antioxidants and see how it's going to affect different disease models. And I've also seen people who have cancer who have been told they only have a few months left to live, and when they take the immune extra, which is the only variable that has changed, and they go back to the doctor, the tumor is dead tissue. So I think that's pretty awesome.
He had a skin condition that was being treated for a period of about, I'm going to say, how long would it have been, Ed? About 7, 8 years?
Oh yeah, they misdiagnosed him for 7 years, and before they come up with the correct diagnosis.
It was a malignant type of a thing, and quite aggressive and ongoing.
It was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yes, cutaneous non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was what they ended up calling it technically. I believe he told us after that, which he didn't tell us at the time, he may go for 3 to 5 years.
If you would get down to the basics real quick, Northwestern had a trial, and I think they were, don't hold me to this exact, but there were at least 18 people in this trial, and they wanted Mike to be one of them, but he had had a melanoma on his back, and so he was excluded from the trial. And so then Northwestern, the local oncologist in Indianapolis, and the this drug company that was doing for the other 18 decided they would do a trial of one. And to make a long story short, he's the only one living today.
Mike just kind of just started to just
Get better.
continue getting better and better, and he astonished the doctors.
I hope you got lots of tape. If it were not for, and I'm going to straighten out here real soon, if it were not for Immune Extra, I'm pretty convinced as a non-medical person that I would be short one very good friend. You know, I practiced and I hoped this wouldn't happen. A buddy of mine, at the age of 41, she was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma, stage 3. She went through all of the conventional treatments, very intense chemotherapy, a lot of radiation. And after about 6 months of all of that, was looking for her new normal. And went along okay for about 3 years, until almost 3 years to the day in 2007, was experiencing some mobility problems and went to have that checked out. And learned that the cancer was back, and with a vengeance. It involved her lungs, her liver, her bones. I believe it was pretty much everywhere but the brain. And so she was given that dreaded news to basically get her affairs in order. And so they began to look for alternatives. Of course, at the age of 44 with teen kids, they were ready to try just about anything. That in conjunction with some very difficult chemotherapy. We'd learned that up to the time that Andrea began those chemotherapy treatments, that anybody who had tried it up until that point in time could only handle about 4. With the Immune Extra and with the holistic therapy that she was on, she was able to withstand 17 treatments. Her physicians and her medical team were just astounded at her turnaround, because obviously it had been unheard of. So needless to say, the Immune Extra became a very big part of her routine each and every day. In her file, they began to write words like stable. And so that was a huge celebration for all of us. We've had this sort of series of stabilization and then progression and then stabilization and then progression. And so they've been changing the prescription and the chemo that she has been on as a result of that, but never any change to the Immune Extra. So as of today, and as of her most recent scan, which was in April of 2013, again, we are back to shrinkage in the tumors. She's resuming her normal routine, and we can only hope that that will continue. The one thing that did not change through all of it was her taking of the Immune Extra.
She's a good person.
She's become a very dear friend, and she's been, I call it, our son's lifesaver, really.
Dr. Tanaka and Dr. Bradley have been just incredible role models. So it's pretty much had an influence on all aspects of my life.
Stage fright, I have that terribly. I mean, you can't put me in front of anyone, but now at least I can go in front of people and you don't know because my hives aren't showing.
I think the biggest thing that you can do to help TBRI is learn about it. Soak up the information and share it with everyone that you see, that you meet, that crosses your path on a regular basis. Because one of the things that we need to do is to get the word out and to make sure that people know that this is available and that the work that's being done here is second to none, and that we need to keep it going through donations and through support and through passing the word.